All right. So we're at the very last phrase of Mishnah 6 in my numbering, in my edition, chapter 2, a continuation of Hillel's sayings. This one is, according to many readings, a kind of a freestanding statement. It doesn't quite follow in any kind of real flow from the previous statements. And we have in the Hebrew, it says, Uvemakom she'ein anashim hishtadel lihiyot ish. So who wants to read it for us? The run-of-the-mill translation. Geraldine's got it.
Run-of-the-mill. Where there are no worthy persons, strive to be a worthy person.
Okay. So any variations on that?
Yeah. Ours says, in a place where there are no men, strive to be a man.
Right. So the Geraldine's translation is interpretive, and Sarita's interpretation translation is a little more close to the text, because the word in the text is ish, means a man or a person, and anashim is plural, men or people. So Geraldine's translation says, doesn't just mean a man, it means a worthy man, right? In a place where there are no worthy people, try to be a worthy person.
Geraldine's also said, changed it to people, which, I mean, ish could be, right? Because of the genderness of Hebrew, right? Ish
Right.
can stand for anyone as well as
Right.
for masculine. Yeah.
Right. It's not necessarily masculine. Correct. So we're going to translate it as people. And now we've got the Rabbi Shapiro translation. Josie, is that what you're going to give us?
Yeah, but where are we? I'm a little lost.
Chapter 2, Mishnah 6 in my numbering. Right where we left off last week.
A scholar cannot be preoccupied with business.
Okay, so
In a
go to the end of that. Go to the end of that paragraph.
In a place where there is no hero, be a hero.
Okay, so he's got another very interpretive translation, following on the idea of worthy person, a hero, even more. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Right. So he's setting the bar up pretty high.
And the note says a hero is one who speaks for the silence. Proverbs 31, verse 8. Do not collaborate with immorality, even if the majority calls it moral.
Right. Okay. So we should first, on personal note, this is this is engraved on my father's gravestone, and we have it. We translated as, where there is no one, strive to be a mensch. So the word ish means person, a man. In Yiddish, German, of course, a mensch is a man, but in Yiddish, the connotation of being a man, be a human being, be a mensch, you know. So it's not necessarily somebody who's going on the barricades and being the true hero and so on and so forth, which Rabbi Shapiro is telling us about. But it's hard enough. It's hard enough to do that. And there's a kind of a bleak beginning here, in a place where there are no other mention, where there are no other people. Which, imagine, how could that be? Can you really imagine that you're in some place where it doesn't mean a place that's totally uninhabited, right? There are no human beings living here. That's not what it means, right? It means when there's nobody else to be, you know, what a human being needs to be at this moment, then it's up to you.
Sounds like Sodom and Gomorrah.
Well, so it's, you know, unfortunately, it doesn't have to be even in such a terrible, mythically evil place. I think that we see this all too often in many situations in plain everyday living. that people, want to stay out of things. People want to mind their own business. Or on the other hand, people are so convinced that they're right that they get very nasty in the way that they advocate for what they believe in. In Montclair, over this past year, we've seen some really nasty, interactions between people who didn't feel that they were trying to be evil per se. They felt that they were sticking up for what was right. The whole school situation was a terribly emotionally packed discussion, and people were very, very angry and resentful and finger pointing at the other side, and each side was claiming to be interested in safety and goodness and protecting human beings. But the tone of the discussion got so unmenschlich, got so really nasty, that it really was a matter of some concern for people who are concerned about these things. So being a mensch can apply to many, many, many different kinds of situations, and you're not off the hook if you don't live in Sodom. Then okay, hey, am I right? Maybe not. The teaching of Hillel directly comes out of a biblical story. It directly comes out the phrase "b'makom she'ein anashim," in a place where there are no other people around. This is an echo of the famous story of Moses when he sees the Egyptian attacking the Israelite slave, right? And it says, "Vayifen ko vacho vayar ki ein ish." He looked this way and that way, and he saw that there was no ish, nobody else. And this is where Rabbi Shapiro's commentary comes to the fore. Nobody to stand up for this man, nobody to stick up for him, and that's when Moses comes up and says, "It's all on me. I can't run away from this." Of course, at the end, he has to run away because guess what? His own people don't respect his being a mensch, and they're ready to. Where are we? That question is such a deep question, Beryl. What can I tell you? Where are we these days? That's why I ask myself that question all the time. So, but the short answer is we're in chapter 2, the very, very end of Mishnah 6. Most editions have this at the end of Mishnah 6, where there are no other people, be a person. There are no other worthy men around, be that person yourself. So, and if we think about Moses, this coming week, we're going to read the Torah's report. Moses was the most humble person in the entire world. So, I mean, the Torah, did the survey. They made the due diligence to check out the entire world. And they found out that Moses was the most humble person. So sometimes we think about being humble. Who am I to say something? Who am I to do something? What do I know? And so on. Being humble could be used as a great excuse for not stepping up, for not putting your foot down on something. And it's Moses who in the end becomes obviously the leader, making a lot of unpopular decisions. But at that very first moment, he's not humble in the sense of saying, well, who am I now to intervene, right? That's not what humility is about. Humility is almost like a post facto thing. Intervene, and then don't let it go to your head. Right? Do what you need to do, and then don't get so preoccupied with yourself. Look at what I did, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So humility shouldn't be something that starts at the beginning to stop you from doing what needs to be done. It's a good quality to have after you do what needs to be done, so that you don't get a little too full of yourself about it. Anybody else want to give us possible ways of imagining the application of this teaching?
I guess it's also, would this also then be saying, don't wait for other people to act, because if everybody is waiting for everyone else to act, then nobody does anything. So that's not necessarily that there's nobody there, but nobody is acting.
Right. And let's take this statement, very, very seriously. A place where there is no one else. Right. So one could be that nobody else is acting like a mensch. They should be acting like a mensch. We're all, supposed to be a mensch, and nobody else is doing it. Nevertheless, you have to be a mensch. You can't say everybody else is doing it, so I should do it that way too. No, you have to be a mensch. But if we take it really literally, what if we're looking at a situation where nobody else can actually do what needs to be done? I can imagine, for instance, thankfully, this doesn't apply to us, but far-flung Jewish communities where there's nobody else, there is nobody who can actually be knowledgeable enough, skilled enough, learned enough and practiced enough to do things. So what are we going to do? Hishtadel liot ish. And the word hishtadel is very interesting. Hishtadel means try. It doesn't say be. It doesn't say in a place where there are no people, be a people. It says strive. That's what we put on, as I said, on my father's tombs. Try to be a person. So, even if you don't know everything, stay a half a lesson ahead of the students.
Yeah.
Just try to do something because there's nobody else. There is nobody else. So what's going to happen here? It's just going to disappear? No, try. Geraldine, yeah.
I was going to say what you said about staying ahead of the students. If you don't know it, look it up and find out what you can to guide everyone else.
Right. And then what you can teach besides the alphabet or the ashrei or how to read Torah or something like that, besides that, what you can teach is you can teach this teaching, right? All your students will, if you're transparent about it, all your students will learn from you that you don't have to be Einstein in order to teach this, right? You don't have to be the Vilna Gaon in order to actually study this, learn it, and practice it. So you can be teaching your students, look at me, I'm learning this also. I'm flying by the seat of my pants, but I'm not afraid, right? I'm not stopping myself because of that. But then you have to be honest about it. You can't say you know something when you don't, right? So that's an important lesson, because then that lesson means that there will always be a future, right? There will always be the next person who will try to be that person, who's needed at the moment.
It also teaches humility, because it shows your students that you don't know everything, and that, you're not embarrassed to say, I have to go and look it up and I'll get back to you.
So good, yeah. So that brings us back to Moses. Moses is, let's say, the paradigm of the person who stepped up when nobody else was around. What holiday do we have where this actually becomes the challenge at the very, very turning point of the story? Purim, exactly.
Yeah.
Right? So important in Purim, where Mordechai says to Esther, there's nobody else who can do this. But then he says, and if you don't do it, guess what? There will be somebody else. Somehow or other, God's going to figure it out. But that doesn't mean that you should say, okay, it'll take care of itself. God will figure it out. Right? That's his challenge. Mordechai's challenge to Esther is, why are you where you are? Back to Beryl's question, where the heck are we? Right? Where is each of us? Where am I? Am I here to do something? I'm here. Nobody else is exactly here where I am, right? By definition, wherever I sit or stand, nobody else can stand in that place or sit in that place.
Well, that was also Moshe's challenge, go into Egypt and confront Pharaoh. Well, hey, I can't do it. And in fact, Aaron went with him. Right, same thing, right?
Who am
Who am
I?
I? Who am I to be able to do that? Yeah.
Right, right. And it was not easy for God to push Moses into that, to saying yes, right? To go from no to yes. Moses was very resistant in that. And, he, because it was scary, it wasn't just one little thing. Hey, in the office, everybody else is backbiting each other and everybody else is picking on somebody. Don't do it. That's hard enough. But, okay, liberate this people, please. Is a little bit of a bigger ask. So we've got different ways of thinking about lihiotish, to be a person. It can be just on a simple moral, interpersonal level. It could be on a knowledge level, on a giving level. It can be on a political level, right? All of these different kinds of possibilities all fall into translating these phrases. I want to just to notice one other thing. The first half of the phrase is in the plural, and the second half is in the singular. Right? It says b'makom she'ein anashim, in a place where there are no worthy people or people in general, whatever, no mention. Be a mensch. And that's also one of the things that sometimes, is intimidating. It's one thing when there's a whole group of people who get something done, and we say, I can't do it alone. In the end, what like you said, what Sarita said about Moses, so Moses finally gets to yes because God promises him that he'll have some help. He'll have some help from his brother Aaron. And also he says the elders will help him. In the end, the elders didn't do much at all, but at least it got him to yes. And then we get the idea that, what, you can do something. No, you're not the entire society. No, you're not the entire, company. You're not the entire corporation. You're not the entire political party. You're one person, but you can try to be that one person, even though there aren't 50 of you or a million of you, right? You can be that one person. Okay, more? Anybody else? Okay, so we still have some time, and we're going to go to the next Mishnah. And this one is an interesting one. It's a little intriguing, provocative maybe. And it's a little bit different than what we've had until now. Okay, so Mishnah 7. So Geraldine, you'll do us the honors, please, of reading the way, the general kind of translation that we have, and then we'll see what else we can come up with.
Another comment of Hillel upon seeing a human skull.
All right, so that's already not such a great translation. I'm going to stop you right there. I'm very disappointed. Very, not in you, Geraldine, but in the choice of that translation. Okay. So who's got something that starts us off a little bit differently? Okay, wait, I'm sorry, Beryl didn't get a chance here. So go ahead, Beryl, what do you have?
Moreover, he saw a skull floating on the surface of the water, and he said to it,
okay, etc. We're going to get to it in a second. So why is that actually, let me just tell you, literally speaking, that's a better translation. What's the difference between Geraldine's translation and Beryl's translation?
Well, one thing, we don't know who he refers to.
Well, we do, because it's continuing from Hillel. This is all Hillel. This is a whole chain of Hillel teachings that we're in. We started
but do we know? I mean, do we know that Hillel is the one who saw the skull
yeah,
floating?
Yeah. This is all. The fact that we've divided up into different Mishnahs as we do is not determinative of anything. If you start back in Mishnah 5, Hillel said,
Okay.
And then he said this, and he said this, and then he said this, and then he said this. But the reason that I stopped Geraldine is because that's an editorial comment and another teaching of Hillel, right? That it takes away from the shock of the way this Mishnah changes, because it starts with a story. It doesn't say Hu Haya Omer, he used to say, right? Instead, it sets us up. There are obviously stories for everything that he said. You know, he got up in the morning, he walked to work, he encountered somebody who told him that he wanted him to teach him the Torah on 1 foot. You know, he had, you know, there's a zillion stories. You know, your whole life is a story. But this teaching is prefaced. Yes, we're going to get to a story. We're going to get to a teaching, but it's prefaced with this very stark scene. Okay, so what's the scene again? Beryl, what happened?
Sorry. Moreover, he saw a skull floating on the surface of the water, and he said to it.
Okay, so we'll get to the teaching. As I said, I love interrupting. So let's take that let's just take that into our mind's eye, right? He sees a human skull floating along on the water, you know, going down the river, the stream, whatever it is, a pond. Don't ask me if skulls really float. I don't know. Yeah, Jen.
Does it say human skull?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, a Gulgolet is a human skull. So it's creepy, right? This is like a really, you know, it's and it's not even like Hamlet's graveyard scene, you know, where it's, at least you're finding the skull, you know, in a place where people are getting buried. No, this is
Kind of more interesting that his first instinct is to talk to it.
yeah. So
This one does.
okay, but this shows us the skull is not where it's supposed to be. Right? The skull should be buried in the earth. Human beings were commanded when they pass away was to return them to the earth. Somebody's making some very heavy noise there. So the fact that this skull is running along with this water this is the beginning of one of these detective shows that we all binge watched, you know, this year. So, you know, and Hillel is, you know, Inspector Hillel, and he sees this skull, and now what does he say? And now we're going to have Beryl's way of saying it, and then we're going to have Geraldine's way of saying it, and then we'll see who else wants to give us another version. Beryl, back to you. Unmute, please.
Moreover, he saw a skull floating on the surface of the water, and he said to it.
Wait, no, just kidding. No, don't wait. Go ahead, keep going.
Because you drowned others, they drowned you. And at last, they who drowned you shall be drowned.
Okay, Geraldine, you have something a little different than that, or what?
Yeah, it's backwards. I'll finish from the beginning. Another comment of Hillel upon seeing a human skull floating on the water. He addressed it thus: because you drowned others, they have drowned you. In the end, they who drowned you shall be drowned.
Okay, they're pretty much the same idea, right? And what did Rabbi Shapiro do with it? Who wants to, you want to do an arm wrestle, you and Bill and Josie? Okay, Bill's going to do it.
We can go back and forth. He actually is pretty straightforward. Hillel saw a skull floating on the water. He said to it, because you drowned others, and this is where it differs, you have drowned in the passive tense, not other people have drowned you, you have drowned, and those who drowned you will themselves drown. In other words, the causality of the drowning seems to be left a little bit open.
So this is, you know, Hillel, you know, Inspector Hillel teaching karma, right?
Yeah.
That's, you know, that's basically what he's saying. What comes around goes around, and, you know, but he's talking to the skull, right? That's also part of this, right? He didn't say, I saw a skull yesterday when I was walking to the yeshiva. Let me tell you what I think about this. he's talking to the dead guy. He's talking not only to a dead guy, he's talking to just the guy's head. And he says to him, I know exactly what happened, and I'm going to tell you why it happened. So from this, he's pieces from a really good inspector, right? From one little clue, he figures out the whole story.
But the commentary in ours suggests that Hillel knew. It says Hillel seems to have known the person whose skull it was, and he had been a brigand.
Right. So that will make us rest easier if we have that comment, right? But very much of a Hamlet thing. Alas, poor Yorick.
Right.
So whether you can tell a person from their skull, dental records, right? He actually that's the part that's skipped in the Mishnah, right? That he then took the skull, back to forensics, and got it all analyzed and so on. So it's a pretty dramatic story, and it's a pretty dramatic kind of statement that he is saying, and we don't have time to analyze it. But the question would be, what is he trying to say, and is this, just this kind of like predeterminism kind of stuff, or is there something else going on? So next week I'm going to be away. If you guys want to hash this out on your own, Gesundheit, but I'll be back, God willing, the following Sunday, and we can pick it up from there. Okay. Be well, everybody.
Have a safe trip and a good trip.
Thank you.